Hello everyone, Catweazle here, welcome to the channel and welcome back to our new playthrough where we're going to be playing a brand new game that's just come out on Kickstarter called Perdition's Mouth Abyssal Rift, which is by Dragon Dawn Productions, and it's a bit of a dungeon crawler. And you all know how much I like dungeon crawlers, but it has got a bit of a twist. It's got some mechanisms that I haven't seen before, and it's mostly card driven, so you won't be seeing any dice. So it's going to be a bit different, and what it is, it's that new. There aren't actually many playthroughs out there on YouTube, which presents a little bit of a problem for me, because that's how I like to learn. I like to learn games by actually looking at other people playing them. I'm not a great one for reading the rule book because I can never remember it all. So what I've had to do is read the rule book and try and remember it all. But I was watching a recent playthrough by Callisto on her excellent Chits and Cats channel. Do go and check it out if you get a chance. She did one for Arkham Horror, the LCG, and she did a sort of learn by play series of videos. Now, she ended up absolutely hating the game, so I hope that doesn't happen to me with Perdition's Mouth. But I thought that's a pretty cool idea, so I'm going to steal it, and I'm going to learn to play Perdition's Mouth by actually playing it. I will be referencing the rule book and stuff as I go along, but that'll probably mean it'll be a bit stop-start, so I do apologise for that. So if I'm always stopping the camera and stuff to go and check things up, please forgive me. I am sort of doing a completely blind playthrough of this. There are a few playthroughs that are on YouTube, but most of them are about a year old. There was one by Fat Nasty Nerd, I think's done one. The inimitable Ricky Royal had done one. He did sort of a couple of rounds just to show how it worked, and I believe Dragon's Dawn have done quite a lengthy one as well. But what I found with these, they were about a year old, and the rule book has sort of updated since then, and they were using prototype components and stuff, so I've just found it a bit difficult to sort of get a handle on it really. So I had to go back to the updated rule book and sort of try and work it out myself. So apologies for that, but as ever, I am hoping that some of you guys will be able to help me out as I go along. I know that Hans Rutgens, who's a subscriber to the channel, he did pick this up at Essen. I believe he said it was one of his favourite games. So hopefully people like Hans, no pressure Hans, will be able to help me out and give me a hand, pun intended. So what we'll do is we'll do our normal introduction and setup, and then we'll sort of get along. Now, probably be about an hour long, as these usually are. As I go through the setup, we'll have a look at some of the components, because the components are amazing, and some of the Kickstarter components as well, because I got the Kickstarter edition, so I do get some additional stuff. But let's crack on, and first of all, let's have a quick introduction. We'll read it out of the rulebook, and it's Into the Abyss. A group of heroes, guided by mystic visions, descends into the maw of Perdition's Mouth, a system of caverns that twists and turns beneath the earth. Within the caverns, a corrupt cult have gathered, where it hopes to summon a terrible demon to the surface. And below the caverns, in the great abyss, lies the demon itself, where it is waited for millennia for a chance to return to its former glory. Perdition's Mouth is a game for 1 to 6 players that plays out in scenarios, with each representing a single game session. The players may choose one scenario for a single adventure, or they may string multiple scenarios together into a longer campaign, trekking through the caverns levels until they face the demon itself. Now, we're just going to do a one-off introductory adventure, and there is something in the rule book just about that. It says choosing your first scenario. For a new campaign, choose one of the scenarios numbered 1. When teaching the game to new players, i.e. me, we recommend 1A, which is what we're going to play, which has been specifically designed for learning the game's basic mechanics. So that is what we're going to do. Going to go through the setup now. That was a quick preamble just to let you know where we're up to and how unprepared I am. So as you can see, I've set most of it out. I will go through why we've set it out as we have, and as I say, we will go through some of the components as I do that. So I will be back in a moment. So here we are at the setup. So 1, choose scenario. Begin by choosing a scenario, which as you recall is 1A, which describes how to set up the map. The scenario sheet lists the enemy's starting locations and may contain other special rules that change with conditions or even how the enemies behave. So campaign or one shot, we've chosen one shot and we're going to use scenario 1A. This is scenario 1A and all the scenarios are on this card stock. All very nice. So you have all the details about how to set up the scenario on one side and you have some flavour text on the other. So let's have a look. Rules reminders. This is just to tell you that rubble, which is this 3-pointed symbol, have scattered obstacles, which makes movement trickier. Moving into rubble costs 3 action points. You can tell by the points on the actual symbol how many action points it will cost. So it's a triangle, so it would be 3 action points. Special terrain can be seen from the symbols by counting the dots. There you go. Moving out of any special terrain does not cost additional action points, so it's just to move into special terrain. Italic text is flavour, you can safely ignore it. All doors are unlocked, but they are shut, so it does cost you an action point to actually open them. If they are to be locked, then the scenario will tell you which doors are to be locked. None are locked in 1A. Oh, and we're also playing on standard. There is a harder version of this, but we're going to play it on standard because it's our first game. Special. If bone worms appear on this level, they'll arrive from the exit. The exit is here, but we'll go through that. That's the exit, that's the entrance at the top. Hard rules, we're not going to do those, so we will go over them. Now, the setup. Entrance is 6C. We're coming in at the side entrance. 6C is here. As you can see, this is the actual board. So you look across to C, it's all gridded. C and then 6. So anybody who's played battleships, dead easy. C6 is here. What else have we got? Exit 4-0 leads to scenario 2A. So you go through this sort of entrance level and then you'll go deeper into the caverns of Perdition's mouth. That is the exit here. So it tells you where it is, which is 4-0. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the exit. Brilliant stuff. So far, so good. 3 guards are at 10E, 10M and 9F. These are the guards who look like they're playing flutes, but they are actually poison dart blowpipes. So those 3 guys are here. Oh, sorry, he should be there. He's been moved. So 1, 2, 3. And there is 1 acolyte. Now, the acolytes actually have a little lantern thing here. We'll go through the actual enemies and the heroes' sculpts shortly. Just to carry on with the scenario, we have a primary spawn, which will include 2 acolytes, 2 guards, 2 summoners. We have a secondary spawn that will be 2 acolytes, 3 summoners. And we have a reserve, which is 2 acolytes and 2 bone worms. We'll see what they are exactly later on. We'll flip this over. As I said, on the back side we have some flavour text. So the cult's underground temple has a side entrance, but finding it was no simple task. For days the group of adventurers hiked, backtracked and went in circles as they tried to follow the torn map fragment. The bug bites and blisters finally paid off when they stumbled out of the swamp and into the hills beyond, spotting the ancient sacrificial mound. Niffle's nose bristled at the smell of death as they entered the clearing, A dark entrance in the hillside beckoned them, even as it repelled their every sense. The low, narrow tunnel forced them to crawl single file through the stone that looked more torn than carved by man. Elisa took up the rear as usual, and was secretly glad that the other's passage rubbed some of the slime off the walls in front of her. After what seemed like ages, Alathabel's keen eye detected a dim light at its end. Just then she felt a low rumble in the stone. Recognising the growing sound, she cried out in warning. Elisa and Neshalim scrambled quickly backward as the rocks pelted them from above. After the earth stopped moving around them, Eliza yelled through the ton of roughly piled stone separating them from the others. "Fear not, it will take but a few hours for me to prepare a teleportation ritual. Take care and we will be reunited soon enough." The two began their long backward crawl toward the tunnel entrance, while the rest of the group continued warily toward the unsure light. A few notes here. This scenario is designed as a way to introduce the basic mechanics to new players, as the game flows rather differently from other games of the same genre. As such, many of the more advanced and most interesting features of Perdition's Mouth Abyssal Rift have been left aside. There's still much more to discover and master in the game. A victory in this scenario means you are already prepared for what lies ahead, but be aware, what is yet to come will be much worse. So watch your steps. So that's our scenario. We've set everything up as they've said. We've put in our doors, which are all unlocked. These are the door sculpts. So very nice. They came with the Kickstarter. And we set those up there. Top banana. So that was choosing the scenario. Next up, we've got to set up the map. Now, I've set up the map here, but I've just got another of the scenario maps. This is obviously for scenario 3 map. Just to show you, fantastic. These are really, really good. Excellent cardstock, excellent mounted boards. They're absolutely fabulous. The artwork is brilliant on them. As you can see, there are small squares cut in. As I say, there is a grid system, so it's dead easy to place your figures. We were mentioning rubble. There are the rubble symbols. They have got 3 points to them, so it takes you 3 action points to move into those squares. There's another symbol, which is, again, it's difficult terrain, but that's only got 2, so it's only 2 action points to move into there. They're double-sided, so I'll just flip this over. So look at that. So looks fabulous. So you've got double-sided boards. There are about 8 or 9 of them, and they're all of this quality, so marvellous. But I've had to set up the first board, as you see. So we've placed the token and figures on the map as outlined in the scenario setup box. The scenario gives you instructions that offer a choice. No, it didn't. So we've set everything up in accordance with the actual scenario sheet that I've just shown you. We've got 3 doors, here, here and here. Our heroes are all here. We'll get to the heroes later, but this is the side entrance that the scenario talks about. And as mentioned, we've got a guard, a guard, a guard, and an acolyte. But there are others waiting in the wings, in the spawn pools. So we'll get to them shortly. We've set up the map. Now we've got to set up the pools that I talked about. So we'll just move across and I will show you the pools, and I will also show you some of the sculpts. And here we are at the spawn pools. So we've got 3. We've got the primary, the secondary, and the reserve pool. And then we've got another pool at the top, which is currently empty. That is, no pun intended, the dead pool. So as we kill different monsters, they will go into the dead pool. By putting them in there, we just know that obviously they can't be respawned and come out again on the board. So that is the pools. Let's have a look at what's in the pools. So primary pool first. The weakest monster is a cultist monster called an acolyte. Now, you can tell these, they're always carrying a very fetching lantern. And these are the lowest of the low. Basically, they do all the menial jobs for the higher ranking cultists, the guards, and their insectoid masters. So these are your acolytes. You've still got to watch out for these guys. From what I can gather, they just generally run off and raise the alarm, which you don't want to happen because otherwise you're going to get overrun. So that is an acolyte. These are all humanoid, the cultists. So we've got an acolyte here. They do look human, but I suppose they could be equally elves, dwarves, or anything else. It's just that in the sculpts, all the cultists are shown to be human. So that is an acolyte. Next up on the ladder, the hierarchy, are our flute-playing guards. As mentioned, they're not flutes, they are actually blowpipes, which is quite a good idea, really, because they're in thrall to an insect god, so what better than to actually have poison darts as their weapon of choice. As you can see, these guys are a bit more heavily armoured. Again, they are also humanoid in aspect, and they will use their blowpipes to deadly effect. They are ranged monsters. So those are our guards. Oh, just to mention how many of each that I got. We have 7, I got 7 sculpts of the acolyte, 7 sculpts for the cultist. There is a full listing file on BGG. If you go in, there's an Excel sheet in the file section, and it just tells you what to expect from a retail version, what to expect from a Kickstarter version, and any of the additionals and stuff that you can perhaps purchase. Do recommend that if you're unsure what you have got, because when you get the actual box, obviously you just get a list of contents that's in the retail box. So if you've got any additionals, you know, it's difficult to check. But they've pulled together a comprehensive listing, and that is in the file section of BGG. So if you're wondering what you've got, whether you should have 2 of stuff like I did, I had some like I had 2 of the spider monsters and things like that. It does well just to check that list, and happy to say that I got everything. So we've done the guards. Next up is the highest ranking cultists, and these are called the summoners. As you can see, these are pretty nasty. So these are like the high priests. As you can see, what a fantastic sculpt that is. So they sort of use their nefarious abilities. They can teleport, and they're a nasty bunch. And you get 5 of these, I believe. I think I got 5. Yes, I got 5 of these. Oh, look at the size of them, and they're really weighty and be delightful to paint. I haven't got round to painting them yet, as you can see, but as you can see, they are chock full of detail. So that is the summoners, and that is our primary pool. So it may be that we're asked to refresh the monsters from a particular pool. If it's the primary pool, these guys go in first. So there's always a chance that new monsters will come on the board. The secondary pool, we have a couple of acolytes again. We've seen those, and we have 3 summoners. In the reserve pool, which sort of backfill up, we have, again, we've got a couple of our friends, the acolytes, but we've also got one other monster. And these little guys, you see those? These are bone worms. So as you can see, these are charming, aren't they? So these run around in the detritus and filth that's been left by the insectoids, and basically scavengers. But that doesn't mean that they're not prepared to give the living a good nip, because they are. So these are like horrible little things that are scuttling around in the filth. So those are bone worms. We'll just go through some of the sculpts that are not actually in this introductory scenario. Let's have a look at the big bad, because he's right at the front. This charming chap is the insectoid demon. So this is the one that we're all down here to try and stop. They are trying to bring him back and summon him, and isn't he nice? So this is the big boss. That is your insectoid monster. We have some spider-like monsters. Now normally you'd only get one of these, but because I've got the Kickstarter, I've got two of them. They're called Tharnics. What these generally do is these will spray pheromones. Normally aggressive pheromones that makes all the other insectoid monsters, and possibly the cultists as well, makes them fight harder. So these are a nasty bunch as well. So as you can see, quite a spectacular sculpt. Very pleased with the sculpts. So I've got two of those. The tanks are these guys, which are like something out of Starship Troopers. These are called the Chileen. As you can see, they've got grasping things here. They've got 4 legs, and they are armoured to the max. So these are like little tanks. You get 5 of those, and again, quite stupendous looking sculpt. And a couple of that we haven't seen. We've got a couple left. These are called Rot-Tiki, or Rotiki. And these are like, well, I suppose they look like little, I suppose they're like armoured scorpion type things. So we won't meet them in this scenario, but as you can see, these are quite nasty looking things as well. Quite a spectacular looking sculpt, as they all are. So those are Rot-Tiki. We've got 5 of those. And the last enemy that we haven't seen is the nests. Obviously, it's full of insectoids, and they've got to come from somewhere, and they come from these nests. So these are stationary, but they are pretty tough to actually get a hit on, and they are nasty things that are basically pumping out extra insectoids. So we need to be wary of these. We haven't got any of these in the first scenario, but you can bet as you get deeper into the dungeon, you will get a lot more of these. There are 3 nests. And the others that at the end there, you have already seen. Those are a couple of guards and a few bone worms that we do not need for this scenario. Other things that we have, I'll just go and get them. These are our hero sculpts. I'll just show you Bastion. He's a human warrior, and as you can see, he is quite fantastic looking as well. They all are. All the sculpts are really, really good. So that is Bastion. We're not using him, but I thought I'd just show him. There's a few others there. There's some in lighter plastic. I'll show you one of those. I think this is Mogba. He's sort of like a... Oh no, this is this is our half-naked halfling witch, Aisha, I think she's called. So that is her sculpt. So she comes with the Kickstarter. There is a couple of expansions. One's called Witch's Grotto, which she's part of, and there is another one called The Hideout, and she comes with Witch's Grotto. Now this one was broken when I received it. No big deal, just the top of a staff had come off, so I've just glued it back on, as you can see there. But nothing too major. These things happen during shipping. So that is Aisha. As you can see, high quality stuff. And at the back here, we've got some of the Kickstarter extras. This is just a portcullis, as opposed to the doors that we're using in this scenario. We also have some treasure chests. And I hope these are focusing, because I'm obviously doing it from the side. And you even get some little plastic levers. So these will sort of replace some of the cardboard tokens that are in the game. You do not need these to play the game. There are cardboard tokens to take their place. But as I was buying them on the Kickstarter, I just like threw them in. These are interesting. These are all victims. So there are 3 of these, which is basically just a bloke on sort of a thorn circle, which is very nasty. And these are the people who we've got to try and rescue. There is another sculpt that you sort of have to put together yourself. It comes in some bits, but as you can see, it is quite intricate. So the actual thorn branch here, that comes obviously as 1 bit, but the cage is in 2 bits. There's sort of a woman in the back half of the cage, and then you've got to stick the front half of the cage onto the back half, and then the whole cage sticks onto the branch. But that said, it was a bit finicky, especially with my eyesight, but I did manage to do it. So there she is, a victim of the insectoids. Oh, very nice. So very pleased with all of the sculpts. So we have now mentioned, we've gone through the sculpts and we've also gone through these pools. So we have done that now. 4, we have got to choose some heroes. So let's bob across and have a look at the heroes that we have chosen. Just before I do that, as we're here, there are some reference sheets. So we've got a reference sheet here for insectoids, we've got a reference sheet for the cultists, and up there we have got a reference sheet for all the action symbols, because there are quite a lot of symbols. So the icons, you just need to have that sheet so you know what each icon means. So that's what the sheets are. Let's move across and see who we've picked as our heroes. And here are our hero sheets. Just before I get onto those, what I will show you is, I'll just show you this. This comes with the game as well. It's a save sheet. So if you are doing a campaign, you just fill this in as you're doing the campaign. You can record who snuffs it, how many wounds they've got, how many victims that they've managed to save, and you can record things like treasure gathered, victims that didn't get rescued, and record the threat level and everything. We won't be using this, we're just going to do a one-off, but you get quite a few of these. And of course, if you've bought the game, you can just like photocopy this and get yourself as many copies as you like. Or what I'd probably do is I'd probably put it into Excel and use that. But excellent stuff. So won't be using that, but it does come with the game. Right, who have we picked? Well, first of all, we have picked Tyra. So this is Tyra. So iconography, this is just Tyra's symbol. So she's got like a purple symbol. In green here, we have the sort of warrior helmet. That's because she's a warrior. The red sword indicates that she's melee. Name's Tyra and she's human. Over here, the 4 and the cards mean she's got a starting hand of 4 cards. 7 is the maximum amount of cards she can have in her hand. Pretty self-explanatory. So we've got a piece of artwork, so she looks pretty mean. She is a berserker, funnily enough. So she has 2 abilities. One is a passive ability, that's the top one, and then she has a special ability. That is the icon for a special ability. So her normal ability, a passive one, is no aiding. Other heroes cannot aid her unless you play the call for help card. Berserk Rage is a special ability. You enter a rage. When you move during a move, sprint or special action, treat that move as a charge. You may attack after moving. If you do not attack during your turn, then the rage ends and you gain a fatigue token. So that's what that symbol means, fatigue. So if you go berserk, once you stop going berserk, you will get fatigue. Down here we have all her statistics. This is action points. This means range. This is the wound track. down to dying at the bottom here. She has a combat track and she has a defense track. She will start at 5 wounds, which is her max health. When she's at her max health, you read along the top line. Similarly, as she loses health, you read along the corresponding line. You get a little token here. You'll see a similar one in a minute, but this one doesn't have a peg on it, and this is just to track where her wounds are, so you'll know which line to read off. So there we go. That is Tyra. She is a human and she has Berserk Rage. So put her over here, put that on there. Oh, I'll tell you what I didn't show you. She's also got slots here. These are for treasures, active treasures. So if you're using a treasure, she can only use 2 at a time. You'll just put them at the side here and you'll know that they were active. She also has a backpack, so any treasures that she's not using, she will store here in her backpack. So they will be in a backpack, can't use them, but she can swap them in. Yes. So that's what they mean. So put her back there. Oh, and she will also get a special deck of cards. These are her cards. Now normally you get 12 hero cards. I've got 13. So I've got an extra card, this one, HT13, which is Hero Tyra, I suppose. Hero Tyra 13. You just got this for a Kickstarter bonus, yeah? Which is, this one's Adrenaline Boost. As you can see, you know which belongs to which hero because it has their symbol on. It also has symbols like that, which we've seen is a combat symbol. So let's just read through this Adrenaline Boost. Gain a fatigue, and you gain 13 combat. So you just go absolutely mental, man. Remove this card from your deck for the rest of the level, so you can only use it once. And you get some flavour text. He who speaks many words says little of worth. And as you can see, there's a little Kickstarter symbol there. That's why I have it. And they have a little code on the bottom. So I have an extra card for each of my heroes. In retail you'd get 12. Kickstarter you get 13. So we will sort those out later when we actually start playing. But obviously we'll have to shuffle those and whatnot. So we've done the bulk of the explanation there with Tyra, so I'll quickly go through the others. Here we have Abyssal. That is her symbol. She is a priest, so that's what this spoked wheel means. She's also melee, and she is a dwarf. Yes, even though she has a fine beard, it is a she. She starts with 5 cards. Again, she's got a maximum of 7. She's practical, so this is her passive ability. While aiding another hero, you may play any non-wound card as 2, and all these symbols means 2 anything. Yeah, so it could be 2 defense, 2 move, 2 combat. So anything with that symbol means you can use it to aid other people. So somebody may be having a combat check. Because you can change any card into any symbol, you can pretty much throw in any card and it will give you 2. You may normally play any non-wound card as 1, like that, but Abyssal will play it as 2. Her special ability is Healing Apparatus. You or one adjacent hero heal 1 wound. Hit point, not the wound card. So you heal a hit point, but they keep the wound card in their deck. We'll get to that anyway during play. Again, here we have all the different abilities, and again, as you go down in health, so your abilities get weaker. Yep, so she's not quite got as many action points as Tyra, who started as 5. Her range is exactly the same, 1 to 2, but it does diminish down here at the bottom, whereas Tyra's always stays 1 to 2. This goes down to 1 when she is injured. Combat, again, not quite as good as Tyra. Tyra, as she gets more wounded, actually has more combat, whereas Abyssal gets less and less. Similarly, pretty much everybody, as they get weaker, their defense will go down. She also has a backpack, but you'll notice she has 3 active treasure slots. So depending on which hero that you pick, the active treasure slots will sort of change and fluctuate. Most have 2, but you do get the odd hero like Abyssal here who has 3. We will put her back. I'll desperately have to try and remember that it's a she, due to the magnificent beard she's got. And again, obviously Abyssal has a similar deck, and as you might imagine, each deck is pretty much tailored towards the hero. So she's a priest, she's a bit of a healer, so she will get a lot of healing help in her deck. So put that there. Our last hero is Eliza. Eliza's got an orange symbol. Now this symbol here means she is a magus. So I suppose it's sort of a curling smoke or something. This is not a red sword. This is sort of a red target, and that indicates that she is a ranged character. Name's Eliza, and she's an elf. She has a starting hand of 5 as well, and a max hand of 7. Passive ability, hard. Whenever another hero aids you, draw a response. That's a response card when you resolve the action. If it has an eye symbol on it, that hero's aid is reduced to 0. So she's a bit standoffish. Doesn't always accept help. Special ability is blink. So it's one of her little spells, I suppose. She can teleport up to 2 squares. You may move diagonally with this. I'll go through movement and stuff when we actually start playing the game. Suffice to say, you can't move diagonally unless you get special dispensation to do so, like this. She starts with 5 action points. As you can see, she is ranged, so she can do 1 to 6. So, excellent. However, she's not the most healthy in the world. She only has 3 hit points to start. Her combat is pretty bad as well. So she doesn't get any help with her combat. And her defense isn't brilliant either. Typical glass cannon. So that is Eliza. So those are our heroes. Put that on there. What we've done is we've chosen a couple of melee characters and a ranged character. We've got 3 characters because it says if you're playing solo, then they recommend playing at least 3 characters. So I've took 3. You can play it with 2 characters, and then you sort of have a thing called a ghost peg. I won't go into that in any detail because we're not using it, but you'll see what pegs are in a moment. So we've got a good mix of melee and ranged. We've also got a mixed whereby we've got a warrior, we've got a priest, and we have a magus. Additionally, we've got a human, a dwarf, and an elf. Let's mix it up, baby. So those are our 3 heroes. Let's have a look at their sculpts. So here's Eliza. As you can see, she's in a hand, she's got a bit of fire. And again, excellent. That is Eliza. Our dwarf, who's also a lady, remember? So we've got 3 ladies. This is Abyssal. And hasn't she got a lovely beard? Look at that. And as you can see, it's a bit steampunky, this game. Although it's very fantasy orientated, there is a bit of a steampunk aspect to it, as you can tell by all her get-up that she's got there. A lot of gears and cogs and some sort of like steam-driven backpack that she's got for everything. So, very nice looking mini. And finally, we've got our resident nutjob, who is Tyra, who seems to spend most of her time running around screaming, and why not, wielding a massive hammer. So that is her. So she looks pretty spectacular as well. Righto. Right, that is our heroes. Let's move on to the next part of setup. And here we are at step 5 of the setup. The next thing that we've got to sort out is called the Stone of Destiny. And it's this rondelle here. So let's have a quick look at it. Again, excellently thick cardstock. Really, really nice. Lovely artwork. Sort of like Greek artwork there. As you see, some horrible insectoid taking on some plucky adventurer. As to where to start with the rondelle, there is this sort of spike here. So you start at move. And what we're going to do, we're going to have Tyra go first. Then it's going to be Abyssal, and then it's going to be Eliza. What you do with the rondelle is you use your action points to move these pegs. You know, I mentioned pegs. So these are the pegs. Very similar to what we're using as markers for health, except they've got a little peg in. And you can move them around and use these holes. So you will use action points to move your peg around. Some of the sectors, the individual sectors, like attack here, has 3 holes. So all 3 could sort of, so these can be sort of used by more than one person, I think. But generally what happens is, if you like a special, where Abyssal is here for example, and Tyra was going, and she was going to spend 3 action points, she would skip this without spending an action point. If one of these sectors is full up, then you just skip across it, I think. But we'll go through that sort of thing in more detail later. We start at move, so you put your first player in here, then your second player goes to the next sector, so Abysal's in special, third player goes to attack. If you had 4 players, they would then go to sprint, defend, charge, and all the way around. We'll see this in the actual gameplay, but I just thought I'd show you how the pegs worked and how you set them out. The rondelle is one of these mechanisms which I haven't seen before, so you'll have to bear with me while I try and figure it out during the game. But that is our Stone of Destiny. So we'll put that down here. We will be seeing quite a lot of that during the game. So I've got it right next to the board. For step 6, we're going to look at the enemy watchstone, which is the other rondelle, which is up here. In fact, I should be shoving that up. Yep, that's better. We can see it all now. Now, this is the enemy watchstone. This is sort of in 2 parts. There is a central threat meter, as it's called, and you can see how this one is organised. This is your start. You can tell because it's got a few spots of blood on it. So you start with this at the bottom. This is your move sector. This is the threat meter. Now it starts on the red one here. Can you see that? Now we've got to do a few things. Because we're doing a one-shot campaign, that means we move it 1. So it's gone onto this yellow one. Then we've got to move it 3 more spaces because we've got 3 more heroes. So that's 1, 2, 3. So this is where we're starting. Our threat meter has moved along. So it's a good way of moving, you know, getting the threat up, because say you had 6 sort of heroes, then obviously you want the threat to increase, because otherwise it'd be too easy, wouldn't it? So we've ended up moving it for 1 because we're doing a one-shot, and 3 more because we have got 3 heroes. So we've done that with the threat meter. Put that there. All these are obviously the sort of AI for our insectoid and cultist friends. They will be doing sort of actions based on this rondelle. Now, there are 2 things. It doesn't use pegs. It will use these 2 things, which are like beads. So we've got a red bead and we've got a green bead. We will pull a card. It will tell us how far around for one of the beads to go. I think it's the green one. So say we got one with 2. That would move on to spawn. And then we'll do everything. We'd move the red bean, and then we'd do all attack actions for all our monsters, and then we'd move it to catch up, and we'd do a spawn, for example. So that's how that works, very briefly, I think. But again, we will see during gameplay. So we've set the threat meter, and we have set up the enemy watchstone. Again, excellent components, absolutely brilliant, slotted together like a dream, and they are really, really good. Very pleased with them. So that is it for the enemy watchstone. And here we are at step 7, which is prepare the response deck. Now, I'm only using 42 of these response cards. I did get a few more, up to about 63 I think, but that was because of the expansions. I think Witch's Grotto and the Hideout had extra response cards. So I've took those out. They're all nicely numbered. I know there's only supposed to be 42 in the base game. Now, you've got to split these up. You have a lot of them. They all have a little letter in the bottom left-hand corner. As you can see, there it is a C. They've also got a code number and an I symbol plus a number in the middle. We'll learn about that during gameplay, but it's this little red letter that we're concerned with. C means common. You will always use the C deck. So all these C cards go in every deck you ever make. So all of those go into the deck. Then you have a choice to make. You have an S deck. Now these are standard. These are the ones that we're going to use. So all these are standard cards, and they are used for standard difficulty. So we'll add those in. Now if you want to play the game harder, as well as having obviously harder scenarios, so this was a standard one, there is another one which is hard. As well as having harder scenarios, you can make the response deck harder as well. So that is what these H cards give you. Yes, obviously a lot more minus numbers. So H is for hard. And then there is yet another deck of a few more cards. And this has got an L on them. And this means for lower variation. The whole idea is that you have an average of 2. When you pick these cards, on average, it will be a result of 2. If you put the harder cards in, I think it is, the average value goes up to 2.5. And with these, the lower variation will reduce the overall variation of the deck, producing slightly more predictable range of results. So I haven't used these before, so I don't know how much they actually affect gameplay, but I imagine quite a bit. So we're not going to use those. This is the deck that we are going to use, so we shall use that. We'll shuffle that later. These ones we will not be using, so we'll get rid of those. Put them over here. There are also some other smaller cards. These are victim response cards. So they have the same back, but you only start adding these into the deck when when cards or circumstances tell you to. For example, if your victims start dying, then bad things happen. But also good things. If you rescue victims, obviously you'll start getting things like a +6. Yeah? But nasty things can happen as well if you don't rescue people. I pretty much said like that doesn't look very good, does it? But the more people you rescue, hopefully the more of these you get, and the better it improves your chances when using the response deck. So we'll put those to one side as well. I don't think we put them in straight away, and we probably won't use them in this first scenario anyway, because there are no victims on the board. But just to show you those particular cards. Okay, so we've set up the response deck. Next, final setup. And here we are, stage 8, the final part of the setup. So we already did our response deck, so we'll shuffle that. I'll spare you my rubbish shuffling. I'll do it off camera. We also have a wound deck. So when we get a wound, we will put one of these on top of our hero deck. Yep. And then we find out what sort of wound it is as we go through playing the game. There are 36 of these. I always like wound 1, vasectomy. Quite how you get one of those, I don't know. But as you can see, we'll see these during the game and what we can do with them. There are ways of getting rid of wound cards. So, oh, Kilforth Gloom. Anybody else backed Gloom of Kilforth? I have. There's a bit of crossover. I believe one of the treasures is actually a sword of Kilforth. So you will find quite a few. I think there's a couple of other Kickstarter things whereby you've got a bit of a crossover. So it was nice to see something like Kilforth Gloom. So there we go. These are the first 36, which I believe are the base game. So I have got extra Kickstarter ones that I'm not going to use because it's my first game. So, and various promo ones. So you can have more than 36 cards, and I do, but it's just because of the Kickstarter. But I've put most of those back. We're just going to play with the standard 36. We will have to shuffle those cards as well. Got the same back, so obviously that you can put them on to your stack, and then obviously when you draw them and switch over, you go, oh no, it's a wound. The green cards are treasures. They're split into two. The top ones here, of which there are less of them, it does have a note on them just to say it's special treasure, not part of the deck. You have to get these through other means. So you've got things like the icon of St. Ben and explosives, and all the really cool stuff are in here. So very, very nice. I'm wondering if the Sword of Kilforth is in here. No, it must be in the normal deck. But these don't actually go into the treasure deck. Keep them separate. You may have to like search through to see if you can get them. I think Nifil or Simmer, the halfling, may actually pick one of these during setup if he's lucky enough. So it might be the icon of St. Ben, I can't remember. But sometimes you may even start with one of these. So these are like special treasures. The normal treasures are like these. So these are the ones that will actually sit against your card. If you remember those active treasure slots and the backpack, this is the sort of thing that you'll be carrying. So you've got things like Amulet of the True God. Let's see if we can quickly find. I have seen it, it is here somewhere, so we'll have a quick look. Probably right at the bottom because I've got them in order. They are the Fabled Sword of Kilforth. So there you go. You can get some real funky stuff in here. So these are all available. Remember the treasure chests that I showed you? This is the sort of thing you're going to find in treasure chests. So put those. I will shuffle them later as well. One thing I did get wrong when I was talking about the response deck previously. These victim cards, these are your actual sort of... these aren't the bonuses. Because it's a response deck, it will be monsters that are pulling out of this mostly. So even though we've got +6, yeah, it's not +6 to us. It'll generally be +6 to a monster. So if any of our victims die, these will start going into that deck. And there's a chance that a monster will pull a very nice bonus. Thank you very much. So these are if your victim sort of snuffs it, then these will start getting added to the response deck. The hero ones, which are benefits to us, are these big cards. Again, these will go into your deck like the wounds do, and you can always pull this over and get a nice +6, for example. So very good, very good. So these are sort of the hero equivalent for rescuing any victims. The smaller ones, the response ones, are the losing victims and victims dying. So that is the difference between the two. Apologies for that, I got a little confuzzled. Okay, so that is pretty much the setup. As I say, I will shuffle these shortly, but that is the setup for the game. We will get into the game next time. Just one last reminder to everybody, this is the first time I've played the game. It's pretty much a blind playthrough. I will be struggling through the rules as I go, so any help will be much appreciated as always, but please bear with me if there are quite a lot of stops and starts as regards the video editing. I have a feeling I will be looking in the rulebook quite a bit, especially with regards to the rondelles, aiding the combat, pretty much everything really. Saying that, having set everything up, having had a look at the quality of the components and of the minis and of the reference cards and reference sheets, well, it just looks fabulous and I can't wait to get started, even if I make a total balls of it. We shall see. Hopefully, with you guys' help, I'll be able to muddle through. So, hope you're looking forward to it, and I hope to see you next time when we start episode 1 of Perdition's Mouth, Abyssal Rift. Until then, this is me, Catweazle, signing off. Toodaloo.